Now this judge has done it again. He last week ruled against the huge gas project off the Tiwi Islands to our north. He blocked this massive project, saying Santos, the company, had not properly consulted some traditional owners on the Tiwi Islands, 120 kilometres away. Owners who claimed this drilling threatened their culture and their sacred animals. I've got to ask, we're now stopping a massive gas development because of sacred animals? Haven't seen such a thing since Bob Hawke summoned the great Bulla spirit to block a mine. Now, Santos says it has in fact consulted the relevant land councils and will appeal. Joining me is Nationals MP Barnaby Joyce, a former Deputy Prime Minister and Nationals leader. Barnaby Joyce, it's always great to talk to you. Did this decision surprise you?
Andrew? It does, Andrew, and it just goes to show that the interpretation of statutes is done by the court, and the permissive form of wording that is within legislation allows that interpretation. And why would I say that, Andrew? Is because whilst we go down the path to the voice, we once more are going to have the courts, which are not a spiritual body, they're a temporal body. That is, they're not in the realm of God, they're in the realm of man. And by reason that they have dissenting reports and different views, they're not a compass of absolute truth, just like this building is not a compass of absolute truth. It's a variance of views and a variance of time and a variance of appointments. And once you start giving to courts and giving to parties the capacity for them to make their decisions about what happens in this building, you open yourselves up to all sorts of problems. Now, what we've got here, first and foremost, is a ridiculous scenario where a decision that happens in there, behind the orange lights, can apparently change what happens there above the building. Now, that in itself is a complete absurdity, but what it does do is it can make our nation incredibly vulnerable. Our biggest export is, it's iron ore, but it's thermal coal after that, and then gas. And if you start changing that, then you take away the money that you have for health, for the NDIS, for the defence, for social security, ultimately at a state level via royalties for pensions, for hospitals, for doctors, for school teachers. And so there are ramifications by reason of you saying, well, we're going to start shutting down our major exports. Now, billions of dollars have been spent by Santos to make this application proceed. And these are export dollars that Australia needs. We've got a $50 billion, they found $50 billion. Well, I can tell your listeners where they found $50 billion. So they found it in income tax, but they also found it through the bonanza that we've had through thermal coal exports. I'll repeat that, thermal coal exports to a world that's hungry and cold and needs our coal to maintain their standard of living. And also gas exports, because Europe has completely and utterly surrendered themselves to energy from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, and the alternative is Australia. And so by shutting down this, we're really in a elongated way further empower places such as Vladimir Putin, because if they're not getting their gas from us, well, we start to narrow down their venues of where they can get it from.
Barnaby Joyce, sometimes I think the West is on a sort of suicide mission here. It's just bizarre. But look, you did tempt me there with the way you started answering that. It's quite true. I mean, people say, well, nothing to fear from this model of an Aboriginal-only parliament that Labor wants to put in our constitution, because, you know, it'll only have limited powers. Not that the words that the government wants to put in the constitution actually say that, but it'll have limited powers. You just have to imagine judges like, dare I say, Mordecai Bromberg, a high court made up of people like Mordecai Bromberg, they will find a way to expand this constitutional interpretation to make that Aboriginal Parliament have powers no one can even dream of today. Correct?
Well, yeah, of course, and it's important for your listeners because a lot of this is done in the sort of the space of people being unaware of exactly how things work. So once more, that building will come up with legislation. You pass it, you see the votes. The interpretation, listeners, is done by the High Court. The High Court interprets statutes, not the Parliament. So if Mordecai Bromberg decides that the interpretation is such that there's an expansion and therefore the Voice gives reason that, there's a new caveat on your private asset, a new encumbrance on how you act, a delineation, and dare I say it, which really I find noxious. I haven't seen a delineation of people and their rights that's been presented. It's not the same. It's vastly lesser. It's vastly less noxious. But the Civil Service Act of Germany in 1933 also delineated people's rights on the premise of their race, their belief. It's a very dangerous precedent. And if I ask your listeners right now, okay, you've heard about the Voice. Right now, think about it as you're watching this television. What exactly are they talking about? What exactly are the words that are going to be inserted into the Constitution? Can you please tell me? Because if you don't know...
They don't know.
My gosh, you're really opening yourselves up, aren't you? You're really opening yourselves up.
Oh, you sure are. Just look at the words. They're a wide open gap that you can do. This thing can do anything that a future Parliament will let it do. It can do anything. But listen, this whole... I know I'm talking a lot about race on the show recently, but the race politics, Barnaby, is just galloping down the street. It's unbelievable what's going on in this country. Can I ask you about something that I've just been alerted to by viewer Mark Hendricks? The New South Wales government says it wants to give Aboriginal groups title to all national parks in the state, plus joint control. It says it's anticipated this new model will provide for the potential handback of title to all New South Wales national parks, covering nearly 10% of the state. 10% of New South Wales to people who identify as Aboriginal, which, as we know now, can include even a Bruce Pascoe with not a single Aboriginal ancestor. What do you make of this coming from a New South Wales coalition government?
Very disappointing. And of course, why stop there? You've got Crown land, you've got stock routes, you've got national parks, you've got the beaches, you've got obviously the entitlements. A lot of people build their houses on beaches, and might I say in some of the teal suburbs. Remember, you don't own the beach. That's owned by the Crown. And now the Crown might be something entirely different to what you anticipated. Weren't national parks about the preservation of the environment? It sounds peculiar coming from a National Party person, a person they possibly see as a redneck and a hillbilly, but weren't they to look after our endangered flora and fauna? I didn't realise they were a bargaining chip for other causes. And how does this work? Are we going to now be charged? Are we now going to be charged to go into? Do they have development rights?
We don't know.
And we don't know. And once more, we're dividing Australia up, and we're dividing it up on the premise of DNA. It's more than ridiculous, Andrew. It's really dangerous. It's really dangerous because
I think it's going down the New South Wales, the New Zealand model of co-partnership, where in our case 3.7%, 3.8% of the population is an equal partnership in running even something that's supposedly a national benefit, a national park. I just think Andrew, this is apartheid, Barnaby.
Well, it's quite obvious that if you say that a certain group, by reason of the DNA, and let's just because they try to guilt trip you on this. This is their argument. If you dare disagree, if you dare raise a concern, then you are therefore a bigot, a racist, or something else to try and shut you down, to basically try and cancel you.
But they are the true racists.
Current at the moment.
They're the ones dividing by race.
Of course,
they're the ones.
Because what we're saying now is if you say a certain person has rights by reason of their DNA, then ipso facto you're saying another group of people have lesser rights by reason of their DNA, and that's a very dangerous premise.
Correct. Barnaby Joyce, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.